He leaned in, reaching up to swipe the pad of a thumb across the corner of your mouth. Before you could even register it, he slipped the frosting-coated thumb into his mouth. You're a bit of a messy eater this late at night. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new here. My name is Death by Pony. Today we're hopping back into our life. So without further ado, let's hop in. Stepping briskly through the entry, you recalled that Baxter's condo had kitchen directly opposite the main living room. You made your way straight there. Baxter was waiting for you beside the fridge, and slowed around when he heard you enter. Ah, you're here. Excellent. Welcome, welcome. Were you able to find everything we needed from your house? Many places might be closed this late, but I'm not opposed to a trip to the grocery store if necessary. You unceremoniously hauled 2 large bags a step up onto the kitchen counter. Though being careful not to squash the eggs, you wiped your brow in exaggerated fashion. We're good. I managed to lug everything over here. You both made a start to unpack the bags of ingredients, but before you could get very far, there was a sudden exclamation from Baxter. In your hands were 2 boxes of cake mixture.
Hallelujah.
Oh, hallelujah. I was hoping you'd bring something similar. Being that genuinely glad, you couldn't help but let your eyes widen in surprise. Do you mean to tell me that Baxter Ward is somehow not a master baker in disguise? I thought you could do everything. Baxter sheepishly raked a hand through his iconically colored hair. Practically speaking, I actually haven't the faintest idea what kind of baking I'm capable of, though the probability suggests that it's unlikely to be much. Tell you the truth, I have never baked before in my entire life, whether using a pre-prepared mix or not. I only imagine that this would be easier potentially. That's again, I'm pretty good at myself. It's not that hard, no need to worry. It should be fine. I think I can manage things. Can't complain about that. I don't have much experience either, but that's not good at all. I know I suck at it. Me neither, sorry. I'm pretty good at it, honestly. And the decorating is a cinch too. I've got this, although to be honest, decorating is my... I'm an artist. Decorating is my whole thing. Baxter gave a newly pleased reappraisal with no small amount of relief mixed in. He bobbed a comical little bow. In that case, I will place myself entirely at your disposal, James. It's my honor to be your humble assistant for this evening. Shouldn't that be my beautiful assistant? I suppose you're right, but given that I'm relying on your expertise, it seems impolite to blow my own trumpet. I'll gladly take the compliment, though. Well then, with that disclaimer out of the way, let's get baking, shall we? You finished unpacking the remaining ingredients, lining them all up carefully on the countertop. Baxter took the second bag and did the same. That reminds me, I might have been a little bit hyperbolic when talked about how barren my fridge was early. It's not as if the thing is completely empty. At the time, I wanted to assure you that it wouldn't be any trouble for you to come over and make use of it. There's definitely plenty of room, but I'm not completely incapable of providing basic level hospitality. If you're ever hungry or thirsty, let me know. This news came as a relief to you, probably not for the reason that Baxter was expecting. Sure, it was great you wouldn't starve while you were there, but most importantly, you were glad to hear that Baxter wasn't living on his own with nothing to eat in the house. That mental image had been so lonely. You thanked Baxter for the offer, although you weren't in the mood for anything at the present. At some point in the conversation, Baxter had rummaged around in the cupboard and added a third muffin tray to the 2 of yours. The kitchen happened to be supplied with one of these already, but thank you for bringing the spares in case of an emergency. As often happened in your life, you found yourself offering a prayer of thanks to your mom for reminding you of the blindingly obvious. Oh right, about that. We'll never get done if we only bake 1 tray at a time. We'll use all the trays. The batch will be done faster. Your oven should be big enough. Baxter's eyebrows lifted in a fraction in surprise. That's true, there should be enough space. The pans aren't terribly large, I'll double check. He picked up one of the trays and walked over to the oven, put it up. He put it inside and took it back out and then tried putting it in long ways. Then he nodded, apparently satisfied. Yep, this will do, especially if we use more than 1 shelf. 3 dozen cupcakes at once. We could almost start a bakery. He was more than a little tickled by the idea, so you refrained from pointing out that he'd have to know a bit more about baking to actually run one. Other matters squared away. Where shall we begin? Without saying another word, you tore into the cake mix. We'll start with the batter, with the mix plus water, oil, eggs. Normally you'd use milk, but the mix we're using has powdered milk in it to begin with, so water is good. I see. So we'll also need to set the oven to preheat to 350 Fahrenheit. Excellent, that's relatively straightforward. The pair of you promptly made a start measuring the ingredients into mixing bowls. It didn't present any real challenge. Baxter insisted on cracking the eggs. Even I know how to do that much. With everything together in one bowl, you started to stir it together using a wooden spoon. While you were mixing the batter, Baxter diligently placed 36 miniature paper cupcake liners into the tins. Once it was finished, he came and peered over your shoulder into the bowls. Is it ready? You gave a firm nod. You had the batter at a good, even consistency, moderately thick, while still being runny enough to pour.
What do you think?
How are you meant to get these into the trays? Spoon, perhaps? Serving spoon would do fine, although a rubber spatula would come in handy for getting last bits of batter out of the bowl. You picked them both out of the utensil drawer. Portioning out the batter into cupcake tins was where things started to get more involved. You took care of filling 2 tins you'd brought from home. Baxter made an effort on his own tin by himself. You managed to get the batter sitting evenly in all the cases without spilling. Baxter's pan didn't fare well, however. His Baxter portions were uneven, and some of the mixture had dribbled off the spoon onto the tray, which had to be wiped down. He mumbled a quiet apology, clearly embarrassed, but you squashed it with an encouraging grin. He had performed his duty, and you were grateful for the help. Baxter cautiously lifted the tray, one at a time, into the hot oven, placing 2 on the top shelf and sliding the last one in underneath. Then he checked the instructions again and set the timer on his phone. There was enough cake batter left to fill another 2 trays at rough estimate, but 3 in the oven were all you had, so you covered the bowls with shrink wrap and put it in the fridge. By this point it was nearly 11 o'clock, but Baxter had remained perky and chipper as the night went on. It didn't come as a surprise by this point, since you knew full well he was a proven night owl. While the cakes were in the oven, you had to take care of the frosting next. You could remember a recipe without any trouble. Ma was right. It was one of the easier parts of making cake. All told, recite the necessary ingredients aloud. As he went down the list, Baxter foraged around the countertop and handed the named items to you, which you added to a fresh mixing bowl. And then he dove under the counter for a moment, popped back up, bringing a handheld electric whisk, then started the 2 metal beaters into the mixture and switched it to allow setting, and you turned on the whisk once the mixture was settled and gradually upped in speed. Once again, Baxter was rather awestruck at the ease of which you handled the process. He'd been giving the electric whisk a nervous side-eye ever since it was brought out. If I'd been given the charge of this device, a dusting of sugar would have been the least of our occurrences. We might have spent the entire night scraping cream cheese off the walls. You chuckled and continued to smooth out the spread. While you doted on the bowl, Baxter had been peeking around the side of you with interest, leaning closer in order to get a better look. It was a touch closer than might be considered strictly polite, and there was something about the proximity of his body that made it harder than usual to concentrate on the task at hand. You certainly didn't mind per se, but still you were operating dangerous equipment here. You could easily pick out the smell of aftershave, and you swallowed. At some point, he concluded that he was crowding you over much, and took a few small steps to a safer distance. He sort of lounged against the far counter, trying to make it appear as though he had always intended to do so. Baxter worked quite hard behind the scenes to give off the impression that everything he did was totally effortless. Maybe it came from being a dancer. He pondered these things during the tedious mixing process. It was so cute. Of course, you already knew Baxter was pretty adorable. It wasn't too long before you had frosting looking halfway decent and turned the whisk off. Baxter took that as his cue to come back over, smiling pleasantly. Thanks for taking care of that, James. Come on, it was a team effort. You're welcome. That was nothing. I ate frosting for breakfast. You smiled in return. You sighed with relief. Thank goodness it was taken care of. You shot him a cheeky thumbs up while taking a lick off the whisk. I like that. Baxter's face creased into a look of mild concern. Careful, James. We want to be sure we have enough to go on the cupcakes. And besides, you leaned in, reaching up to swipe the pad of a thumb across the corner of your mouth. Before you could even register it, he slipped the frosting-coated thumb into his mouth. You're a bit of a messy eater this late at night. This man. Your mind had gone totally blank, racing to catch up. After a short pause, Baxter backed off again, acted as if nothing had happened. This guy was going to kill you one of these days. I'd originally planned to put the frosting in the fridge while we waited for the cake to finish, but that might make it difficult to spread later on. What do you think? You'd been about to say the same thing, so you merely nodded in approval, and it was nice to see that he was beginning to figure things out. At that point, you were inclined to relax a bit, even with the frosting taken care of and comfort smell of baking in the air. Baxter was in the mood to keep himself busy. In fact, your success with the cakes, however relatively that success might be, had put him in an industrious frame of mind. You watched as he cheerfully donned a pair of rubber gloves, black of course, and began to fill the sink with water in order to wash the bowls and other baking equipment. While the faucet was running and he took out some cloths and surface cleaner with the intent of wiping down the countertops wherever there were traces of cake mix powder and batter. Like to help with the cleaning? You left to him. He seemed to be entertaining himself. I'm doing a lot of the baking. He can clean. He hummed quietly under his breath in wordlessly formless serenade. The way he moved along, the melody made him seem to be drifting in a world of his own. Suddenly there was a bright tinging sound and jolted you out of whatever thought you'd been having. Baxter's hand went to his back pocket. The timer on his phone had run out.
Exciting.
The cakes are done. He was genuinely excited by the prospect of hastily jabbing at his screen to turn off the alarm, then grabbed the nearby pair of oven mitts with pictures of cats on it. They must have belonged to the owners of the condo rather than Baxter himself, since the fabric was a deep red color. The cats were all black and white, though you suppose that counted. Carefully, cautiously, he eased the 3 baking pans out of the oven, placing them one by one onto the granite counter. He even recalled which had gone in first, second, and third, and moved them in proper order. The cakes looked good. They'd risen uniformly. The color was nice, rich and chocolate brown. They hadn't dried out either. You could see a faint, moist sheen on the surface. You chimed up and admired your handiwork. You have anything to go underneath the pans to protect the counter, you mean? Oh, that's a good point. I don't think there's anything here, though. It should be fine. Hopefully the stone is real, not a veneer over a less sturdy material. Baxter stared down at the cakes, his face thoughtful. Then he removed the oven gloves and folded them on the tabletop and pinched the bridge of his nose and eyes closed. I dread to ask, but how many of these were we supposed to make? I realized I'd never asked Terry how much food she needs. You hadn't thought of that. While it had been decided you'd bring cupcakes, Terry had never said anything about quantity. She simply wanted another dessert besides her cake. He explained as much to Baxter. He breathed in through his nose, then sighed deeply and opened his eyes. Perhaps that's because Terry doesn't know herself. That's understandable. This whole party was extempore to begin with. I don't know that word. I do hope 36 is enough. Even with the spare batter, we don't have time to prepare another batch. Not if they're too cool and be frosted before this event. I must extend my thanks once again that you brought your family's spare tins over. Otherwise, the crowd would be fighting over paltry 12 cupcakes. You're welcome. We got lucky. Speaking of your family, you checked the clock of your phone to see how long ago you bade them farewell. Wow, it had already gone past midnight. You couldn't believe that it's so late, and you couldn't even start the frosting until the cakes had cooled, which might take another hour or more. You put the phone down, glancing in Baxter's direction. You were acutely aware that he was doing you a favor, more than one, for that matter, and you didn't want to further impose if it be an issue. You decided to put the question to him directly as much as you were able. What would be worse, staying up even later to finish everything tonight, or getting up bright and early tomorrow morning? Baxter scrunched up his face, his boyish nose wrinkling distaste. Waking up early, no question. Of course, you knew he'd say that before you even asked, but you wanted to give him the choice. It's fine, don't worry. I will stay awake long as needed, and this endeavor, though, I understand what I was signing up for when I offered to help, more or less. Though I honestly don't mind if you head home and get some rest. I can idle around until the cakes have set, and then, well, you know the rest. Until today, I've never baked before, and by extension, I am 99% certain I've never frosted cake before either, but I can manage. He cleared his throat, crossing his arms with finality. The point is, I don't intend to quit until the end. The bitter, but hopefully not bitter taste in the end. Well, after such a rousing speech, I can't exactly abandon you. I guess someone needs to make sure you don't make a mess of things. I could never make you do all that by yourself. You sighed, somewhat resigned. You weren't getting out of this either. You nodded firmly, resolved to stay and help. After such a rattling speech, I can't
I
abandon you.
appreciate the understanding.
I appreciate it greatly. Both your continued company and your help will get through this with, what was it? The awesome and terrible power of teamwork? Bow down. Of course, all hail. The comment made you decide to put the cakes in the freezer for a short while to help speed the cooling process along. The 310s fit snugly inside. Nothing left to do but wait. I was wondering how Terry's cake's going along. Now that I know exactly how hard planning a party was, I can say it's a lot hard. This has been nice. This is actually pretty fun. You loitered around and sure had what to do now. This was pretty fun. Oh, there's no need to sound quite so surprised about it, but I agree it's been a delightful experience as a whole. Baxter pressed firmly against the freezer door, making positively sure that it had shut. Then he tapped his phone, setting another timer before glancing your direction.
Well,
Since we need to wait a while longer, why don't you take this opportunity to reset? Welcome to use either the couch or the chair in the living room. He ran a finger around his collar before putting a hand in his forehead, pantomiming fatigue. I must say, trying to keep up with you is taking a toll on my stamina. I'm starting to feel the effects. I'll take a rest on the couch then. Chair sounds good right now. I'll stretch my legs in the lounge for a bit. Couch. Of course, please go right ahead, and before you go, held a hand up, gesturing vaguely about. I almost forgotten where we were. I'll join you shortly, but can I bring you any refreshment to drink? I was about to get myself a little something. Just some water. Good things. What are you having? He shook your head. What are you having? He tapped his finger to his chin and made a non-committal sound. You'll find out soon enough. This was rather unusual. You privately observed Baxter would never normally dodge direct question. He was always straightforward, even unnecessarily so, as Cove might say. Oh well, no use losing sleep over it, not when you were losing so much already tonight. You made your way into the sitting area, making yourself at home on the generous-sized couch that was unexpectedly comfortable for one so fashionable. The house was built on an open plan to the extent that you could still see Baxter in the kitchen from where you were waiting. He opened one of the cabinets and took out something that looked suspicious, like one of the plastic champagne flutes you and Terry had bought earlier today, except that one was a real glass. From the fridge, he fetched a large green bottle from the shelf, which you hadn't spotted before. He needed to screw the cork off the top. Out poured a fizzy liquid, pale golden color. Wait, is that real champagne you're actually drinking in front of our newborn cupcakes? What is that, sparkling cider? Are you doing enough to drink it? Is that real champagne?
yeah.
Correct. The reply came immediately, without so much as a glance in your direction. He had no compunction about what he was doing. Can I try some? I think that's about it. Ooh, whatever. You have your own fun, I guess. You frowned at his decision. It was too reckless. You smiled yourself and shook your head. Oh, Baxter. Can I try some? Baxter finally looked over your way. A weary smirk on his face. And then he reached into the cabinet again, retrieving a second champagne flute. I hate to be a bad influence, yet I'd be hypocritical not to offer you the same opportunity to misbehave that I afford myself, and I'd hate that even more exceptionally poor manners. Trust me, Baxter, you're not influencing me in the slightest. You are, but means to an end. I have labored long and hard. I want only your strongest potions. Without another word, Baxter poured a fresh glass, taking them both in his hand. He carefully navigated his way around the kitchen, perched himself on one of the chairs. He took the drink he held out and clinked your glasses together and raised one he had to his mouth. I won't tell if you won't. Look at this man. Charming. His lips curled mischievously. But look at me drinking on the job. What a shameful way to start my new party planning occupation. Pro bono, naturally. Cheers, James. He took a long, slow sip of champagne, closing his eyes and savoring the taste. He smacked his lips and let out a loud ah of enjoyment. That hit the spot much better than the things they call a baby Bellini. Though you wouldn't have admitted it, the laid-back manner which he handled such an illicit topic was rather, I don't know the word, at least I don't know how to pronounce it. Maybe you had a bit of a spot for the bad boys. Your thought snagged on something Baxter had said moments ago. His joke about drinking while on the clock. In a certain sense, you reasoned it wasn't so much of a joke after all. Baxter had readily committed to helping you and Terry organize Miranda's party in extreme short notice. He dedicated himself to the endeavor, not just today, but tomorrow as well. And for all of that for a group of people he'd only recently come to know. Why are you trying so hard for people you just met? Baxter, be honest. Are you really enjoying yourself at the party? Baxter, thanks for being so helpful all this. This party prep, pretty unique experience, huh? Sorry for taking so much of your time, Baxter. Thanks for your help. Baxter didn't meet your gaze. His eyes wandered around the room. He gently swirled the champagne in his glass and took another slow sip before answering, intentionally dramatic.
My pleasure.
You're welcome, James, although I feel very strongly that your gratitude is unnecessary. If anything, I should be thanking you for making me part of it. I couldn't have devised a more pleasant way to spend my time here, even if I tried, and to be frank, I have tried. I didn't come to Sunset Bird totally devoid of any plans or ideas, and you and your friends have invited me to participate in an event with great significance to you. It's a profuse gesture to show to a relative stranger. When it's over, I'm long gone from here. I hope you can all look back on this party for years to come, maybe for the rest of your lives, and treasure the memory. And if I'm part of that memory, then at least that is satisfaction enough, though perhaps I'm in danger of giving my contribution too much credit. He was smiling, but it was all muted, distant thing, like a car headlamp seen a long way off, ready to turn a corner. It felt akin to a farewell, even though he wasn't leaving yet. The glimmer was gone in his eyes, as his eyes met yours over the rim of his champagne flute. Besides, I'm on vacation. I have nothing but day after day of generous free time. It'd be silly to begrudge it being used, especially if it's easier for me. This party is only a party from my perspective, which means I can put my head back and simply bask in the occasion with the highs and the lows. For you and your friends, this is important. It has weight. I have to say I'm curious about the situation you and Terry are both determined to make this event, but for all that, it seems rather one-off affair. Not wishing to sound critical, but if I were you in the regular habit of throwing each other parties, I would have expected better preparation for the preparation. Is there something about this specific birthday warranting such a special affair? You found yourself taken aback by this. It wasn't like you had thought about it either. You'd been doing so much earlier tonight, but what was the rush in getting all the ingredients and baking the cakes? You'd been distracted since then. All at once, the feelings you suppressed bubbled back up to the surface. Slowly, hesitantly, you began to talk. This might be the last birthday we all get to celebrate together. I've known Cove Basley my whole life, Terry and Randy not so long. Still, they're important to me. So, we'll be grown up and we'll be heading off in different places in life. And I can't just sit around without making the most of what we have left. No way. That's why this party has to be amazing. At least that's how I feel. As he listened to your explanation, Baxter regarded you with a sullen expression. There was a pinch in his forehead where his eyebrows had come together. He was all sympathy.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry you're going through a difficult experience. I wish I knew how to alleviate matters. It's so uncertain. Sadly, there are few, if any, guarantees in the world. Or rather, such is the case for the vast majority of us. I can't believe there are people who can remain close to each other in spite of distance and years between them. Those who will remain in your life always. His countenance had softened, a faint hopefulness lighting his face as moonlight on the water. He spoke with tenderness.
I believe you will find those kinds of people.
James, I really do, and while nobody can say for sure, I'd bet you'd already have. Baxter, thank you for listening. I think I found them too. I hope you can have someone like that as well. Are you saying that you'll be true to me always? You beamed at him, thankful for his company. You nodded along quietly. I think I found them too.
That's wonderful.
I'm so glad to hear that. We should all be so lucky. Maybe it was partly due to the lateness of the hour or the ordeal you were both wading through, but you were overcome with a strong surge of affection for Baxter. He was the first to play it down, but you knew the memories of your time with him were going to be precious indeed. You were grateful to have met him. You thought you pulled him into a hug. We're going to kiss this man. You pressed your lips to Baxter's, Baxter responded somewhat hesitantly at first. You could feel his hands hovering, hair thread above your forearm, like he wasn't certain what to do. Gradually, he eased into it, holding you gently, while moving his mouth against yours. There was 9 characters nervous to his touch. When you pulled away, you saw his eyes had been narrowly opened. Baxter let out a heavy breath, pressing a hand to sternum. His pale complexion was stained with the vibrant flush. It was such a captivating color in contrast to his usual monochrome tone. He cleared his throat and leaned away to place his champagne flute over on one of the coffee tables nearby, eyes avoidant. Perhaps it's best not to be too distracted when we decorate the cakes. After all, we're drunk for the matter. It was directed inward as much as it was to you. A low murmur, an attempt to calm himself. There was a long pause. The only sound was the faint whispers of a car passing by, the gurgles of the fridge from the kitchen. Ah! The two of you jumped in surprise. Baxter's phone went off like a shot in the night. It was the alarm he'd set when you put the cakes in the freezer. He shakily turned back off to getting up from his seat. A few seconds of hesitation and then, well, now this cupcake has better be ready for us. Damn. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, remember to hit like. That way I know you're enjoying the videos I'm making. Remember to subscribe. That way YouTube brings you back here to see what's next. And I won't take up any more of your time. Have a good day, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.